The role of the two and the three doesn't really change much in this type of system. They're still responsible for shifting, covering, and creating and having balance when the ball's on the opposite side of the field. Um, we discussed in practice a bit what happens when center backs have to step up. Right, we want to make sure that our outside backs are pinching in. So the two and three, if five has to step up at any point in time, we want to make sure that the two and three are into cover, and so as well as the four. In this case, if the five steps up. Um, they're also, they're responsible of marking this, of covering the spaces in behind them, right, in between their center back partner. So in this case, it's 3 and 5. The space in front of them. In this case, between 3 and 8. That zone in here, and reading any long balls into the spaces in behind and into the corner. Where things might slightly change in this type of setup is that now we're reading situations, right? Now we're reading what our press. Now we know what our forwards are doing. Our 9 and 10 and our 11 and 7. We have to know what our relationships are now. As the ball is with their four, right? The three now has to start to read play in this area, right? How is 11 doing? Where's the positioning of 11? Our 11. Is he cutting off passes in here? Okay, that allows me to be a bit more aggressive, possibly in here, and obviously be aggressive to mark any spaces in behind. What's the pressure like to 10? Right? Is he doing a good job of getting the attacker's head down? Is he forcing it down the line? We're in good spots to mark off or screen passes into 10. All right, making it difficult to get the ball into here, but also inviting the ball out wide. Now, as the ball obviously gets to 2, now it becomes even more. Number 2 and 3 have to be more aware of what their number 2, their outside back, is doing with the ball. As 11 goes to press, what are his options, right? Is the 7 is the only option? We can be super aggressive and try to win the ball and pressure. If he's looking to play in behind, if he's the type of player that just likes to hit the ball, right, we're probably going to be a little bit off of 7. Right, you got to read the situation between these two players because they're likely to be the ones that are going to try to play into your area, okay, from this position. So, these are simple scenarios, but basically the responsibilities in 2 and 3 are the same. They're shifting the covering. They're creating balance on the weak side. We shift towards the ball, obviously, and leave their 3 weakest players. We want to check our shoulders. I wrote that down here. Read our weak side threats and check our shoulders. Make sure we're not ball watching. Okay, as the ball goes into a wide area, especially down in here, right? Especially in the wide areas where they're able to cross, players on the other side of the field have to be alert. But really, what in this scenario, the best case scenario is that 7 does a good job, or 11 does a good job of forcing the ball down line, screening passes internally, and the ball gets played into 7 where we can press it and get another player to help. All right, we force the ball back. The ball's on a weak, is on his outside foot instead of he's not able to turn and face me easily. We can use the line to force the ball backwards. We're reading any passes internally. Okay, any combination play. We're looking to read that and force the ball and see if we can trap him here. Some of the issues that we had in practice were around over pursuing. So if the ball was, if we're pressing and say if they've done a good job of switching point attack and 10 switching a point of attack and 10 can't necessarily get here, 11 isn't in a good spot necessarily to go because 10 isn't there yet, and the ball can get played in. The ball can get played in directly into 7 as we're shifting. Right, this player has to be aware of obviously the space in behind. Right, don't get double moved so that he runs in behind here. So you can't just check into this space or press this space when the ball carry has time on the ball. We got to be alert that he can play in behind. All right, this player has time on the ball that his head's not down. He can see the field. He can get the ball here directly because there's no one in the path. They've done a good job of getting past our pressure. The issue that we had in practice was that players were over pursuing this guy, and he was able to either one-man triangle, meaning take a first touch. If he's running at full speed, right, this player takes a first touch into this space and is able to beat him one time. All right, you got to be aware of that. As the ball, you're reading the play of the player on the ball. As the ball is about to get played, yes, you can go hard. But as soon as the ball reaches or gets close to the defender or to the attacker, you got to be aware of his options, right? If his head is up and he can see you coming, you can't continue running. You got to slow yourself down and get into a jockey phase, try to cut off and screen the next pass because he's able to see the field, right? And so we want to make sure that he can't either combine with a player to get behind, right, or just beat you himself by either dumbing it to himself or flick it to himself. And because you're running so hard, you run right past him and he's able to beat you. So we want to make sure that if this pass is able to come, directly, and you're trying to read it as the ball's traveling, if it's in there, yes, you can. If you're far away from the play, say we were on the other side of the field, right, and you're having to chase, you're running as the ball's traveling. Yeah, you're sprinting at full speed, but as the ball gets close, or this is what happens sometimes, or he goes towards the ball. As he gets close to the ball, either the ball coming to him or he goes to attack the ball himself, you got to slow yourself, get into a jockey phase, right? Moving your feet shorter steps and forcing the ball wide. Marking central areas, the same principles. Force the ball wide, screen pass internally, and try to press when he does go wide. Use the sideline as your advantage. Now, there are a couple more complex scenarios in this situation where maybe 7 checks into this space and 2 goes, which I would like our forwards and outside backs to do at times, right? Create confusion with switching players. You're obviously going to have to track, right? The player, until the ball's played, you got to make sure you track this player, right? First, you can always press up. We can always press towards the ball, but if you're in this situation, it's hard to recover. So obviously, reading the situation, there's lots of combinations from these players at this point that could be dangerous. Playing in and this player getting around, all kinds of combinations with 7 to 10 or with 9 if this player's trying to serve the ball in the box, things like that. But for the most part, your responsibilities in this type of pressing, in this block, is the same. We want to mark centrally, just like you normally do. Mark these areas between you guys, the 3, the 5, the 8, or on the opposite side, the 2, 4, and 7. Make sure that triangle is strong, right? Make sure that it's not easy to play through. Force the ball wide, and obviously read the weak side threats. Communicate. We're shouting now. We're shouting our positioning. We're shouting who's pressing, who's covering, what we need to do stepping in terms of dropping, things like that. This defensive line has to be strong. But these 2 players are responsible for obviously the area in behind them and in front of them, and obviously pressing out wide. So those are the basics here. In a perfect scenario, if we do a good job of getting this ball, forcing the ball into this channel and where we wanted to press, now we have your role now in this area is to try to press, force the ball wide again. Don't let them internal and see if we can double down on this player, win the ball from them.